Hi, welcome to Herd Nerds. I'm very excited today because I have the winner of the 2023 Triple Crown Steak Challenge here, Mr. Barry Elliott, and he is from Wagyu Shimizu. Did I say that right, Barry?
It's close. Wagyu Shimizu.
Shimizu. Okay. Why don't we just start out with you telling me a little bit about what that name means?
Uh, Shimizu is my wife Akiko's family name. She's from Nagasaki, Japan, and Shimizu means river in Japanese, so flowing water, whatever.
Nice. So I was very excited to see that your steak did so well in all of the categories. And I would like to know a little bit about the bloodlines on that steak. And well, first, I want to, you've entered the Triple Crown every year, and I'm very proud of that. I'm so glad that you won this year. It's great.
Well, thanks. We did miss one year, and that was the second year you had it because we didn't have an animal to enter the competition at that time. But the first year when we entered, it was an F2 that we had from when we purchased some Wagyu crosses from the Blue Heron dispersal back in, oh shoot, I forget when this was, 2013, 2014 time period. And so we just wanted to put something in just to see how it, how it fared compared to everything else. And while it was good, it didn't fare well against everybody else in the competition. But we knew at that point we had um, animals in the pipeline to potentially put into upcoming, Triple Crown Steak challenges if you had them, or if you continue to hold the competition, if you will. So in 2020, during the COVID year, we had two from actually the dam that this carcass came from that we put in the competition, and we knew she did well. We were very excited because we were confident that her genetics were really bringing something out. We saw it in those first two carcasses. I think we placed fifth and 10th. When a 26-month-old steer finished fifth. I think he actually came second in the the sensory taste panel, which was exciting. Akiko and I, when we first had that meat, we were like, yeah, that's Japanese right there when we tasted it. So we knew we had a good cow, I guess is what I'm saying. And it took another 3 years before we had another one of her carcasses to enter the competition. So, we're excited about that. And we entered a couple of others as well. One was an F1 from our Shigefuku bull, actually, which is most people probably wouldn't enter a Shigefuku F1 in the competition, but that's what we had at the time, and we wanted to see how that carcass compared to what else was being brought out there, and he represented pretty well. He finished in the top five overall. I think he tasted fifth in the taste. So, the point was trying to understand what our animals had, and and how they really compared to what else was coming in from across the country, because there's a lot of wonderful breeders out there that maybe do things similar and or differently than us. We just got kind of curious to see how we were, you know, how we are compared to them.
And I think it's great that people do enter their beef to find out, compared to other breeders across the U.S., because our steaks come in from everywhere. They come in all the way from California to, Vermont to Maine. And it's really great that we get to see on a playing field how the steaks do. And they're put through the rigorous testing and analysis that was done this year. And I want people to know that this year, the Triple Crown this was the year that we did the most testing ever. We pulled out some stops and whistles. We had the USDA involved, and our breeders are going to get all that information back. We're putting that together now, and it is a very good profile of how your beef, scores all around, not just on the carcass grade. And because there's a lot more to making a great steak than just that intermuscular fat. And so, I applaud everybody that's keeps sending their beef in to get the information that they do on their steaks, because I think it's critical to a program that wants to improve. You can't improve if you don't know exactly what you have.
No, exactly. Uh, and I know when you're a small breeder like ourselves, giving up 3 or 4 ribeyes when you only produce 4 or 5 carcasses a year is a kind of a big deal, because we sell our animals in quarters and halves. So when we
Hmm.
don't, it's tough to do that, and not keep, when you're selling a quarter. Sorry, we're keeping 3 of those steaks for a competition. Our customers, they generally don't like that.
So, Barry, your genetics really produced an amazing steak, and I'd like, and you're a small breeder, so I'd like to know about your genetics and the fact that you, like you said, came from producing a not so great to doing, winning the Triple Crown.
Well, Desi, when we first started looking at getting into Wagyu, it was all about learning about Wagyu, and probably you remember this. You were in it before I was. Um, in 2013, 2014, 15, there wasn't a lot of information online on how to on Wagyu genetics. There were a few big decent sized breeders out there. Um, and if you went to their website, it had the same information about the animals. Okay, Michifuku does this, Haruki 2 does this.
Yes.
The Kadaka lines do this. Dai 20 Hirshiye, Itamori Taka. It was all the same information that you saw. And so it was really tough to try to figure out, where we wanted to go or where to even, find, quote, good genetics, because all the information was kind of the same. And so I was fortunate, my wife's Japanese. We actually visited farms in Japan before we even had a cow. I'm talking any sort of cow. And it kind of opened my eyes a little bit on what they were, doing. We didn't know what they were doing, but as we got into it, I started to understand some of the things that the Japanese were doing, or at least from the genetic standpoint. And as I started looking at what we had here available to us in America, it kind of gave me an idea where to go. And at the same time, I kept finding more information because you had to dig. You find David Blackmore's information in Australia, and he had his stuff was so much different than what Bar R had and what
Yes.
reserve cattle or some of the others. I don't want to leave anybody out. I certainly am not trying to, put any, because I was reading a lot of the same information. I finally found some other genetics that uh, we didn't know have, and some of those names work themselves back to the things we were seeing in Japan, which was interesting. And then, of course, with David Blackmore, you saw the Takeda genetics. You saw those a little more prominent in the pedigrees, and I think that's kind of what helped us when I started looking for a cow to buy. So during the peak of the Great Recession, my company moved me, and I was living in Tennessee at the time, and they wanted me to move somewhere between Richmond and Philadelphia for the work that I do. And I chose the Virginia area, knowing that honestly it was just cost of living was better down here than further to the north you go. So we ended up, in all honesty, we bought a small farm that had been foreclosed on, and Akiko and I, we neither one of us were farmers, but I grew up in the countryside, the south side of Canton, Ohio. I'm from Ohio, in Canton South area, and across the street, my neighbors had cows, and so I was always, wanted, I guess that vision of having cows or whatever. So the opportunity presented itself because we had some land, and so we started with bottle calves from the market because we knew we were going to Wagyu. But if you remember, kind of still today, Wagyu heifers back then were minimum 8,000. You couldn't find anybody that wouldn't sell one for less
Yes.
than $8,000. And
Right.
so for us having, we weren't going to buy a Wagyu cow and it not do well, and die on us. So we got bottle calves just to start learning about cows. We started raising them up, and we met a couple that had a Wagyu bull, and they're great friends of ours. Matter of fact, that gentleman is the one that feeds out our animals now. And so just by sheer luck, we met them, and we got an F1, and then we bought, like, as I mentioned, we bought those crosses from the Blue Heron dispersal. I'm from Canton, Ohio originally, and my family still lives up there. And one of the things when I started researching Wagyu and trying to find Wagyu, I found Ohio Wagyu in Navarre, Ohio. Well, coincidentally, if I had lived across the street growing up, I would have went to the school district Navarre, Ohio was in. And so I reached out to Francis Pang, which I didn't know him at the time. And every time I go up there, I swing by and I see Francis. Whether he wants to see me or not, I'm swinging in to see what he's got going on, because he's got an amazing program there. Well, every time I would swing in there, he would ask me what I'm doing now. I said, well, we from the F1s, and then we had the crosses. And he says, Barry, you got to get into full blood. You got to get into full blood. I said, Francis, they're so expensive. He said, I don't care. You just need to do it. So eventually, as I kept doing my research on animals, I was liking what I was seeing with the cicada lines, okay, to be brutally honest. And there was a sale coming up. And back then, remember, there were only, maybe 3 sales a year? One in
Maybe.
Passion for the Prime hadn't even started yet. And
Right.
then there was a Texas sale, and then maybe a Lone Mountain sale, because they were doing one every other year at that point. So that was really your only opportunities to find Wagyu, unless there was a dispersal. And I had seen, I was going through the pedigrees of this sale that was in January, and I noticed this one pedigree that had on the dam side. And that was one thing that I had learned early on in all the research was find a good females. You got to find the females that are the best, because that's what's going to take you. So I really focused on looking at the females, and there was one that really caught my attention, and that was a female her name is HW Dynami Doi, 28X. I'll call her 28X. I saw that pedigree, and I was like, it was basically Itazura Itomichi over top of Itazura Doi. And then on the bottom side, it worked its way down to Fujiko and Okutani. So that was like, that's I think is what we want. Once again, it's hard to know when you're trying to read as much information as you can. But I felt that was the right thing. And I honestly didn't care who she was bred to when we made the decision to go after this particular cow. And maybe I should have paid more attention to it, but I'm glad I think I made the right call with the female, because the sire also, I think, has proven himself because of what we've seen with the carcasses from, we call her Malashit.
Oh, yeah.
Probably her name was Malachite, but I call her Malashit. And
I like her carcasses.
How she is produced for us. So, hey, I think we got the right female line, but she was also paired to the right bull too. Apparently, as we've seen, I've got a sister of her now, but we haven't got to the carcass phase with her. So we'll see more about that, but I'm pretty confident we chose properly because of the dam.
And, Barry, that brings to mind when I first got in the business, nobody even really concentrated highly on the dams. All the information was more about the sires. And I was like you, I was really looking for information on the genetics on dams. And I think, of course, that they're very important. We all know that. And but I just felt like the information was a little bit limited for dams.
I definitely agree with that. I'll show you a quick little thing. This is a book from Japan, and it was written by a veterinarian in Hyogo Prefecture. And sorry, I would leave this up for a second. The title is "I Wish You Were a Girl," because it talks about all the male sires from Hyogo. And in the book, it has a lot of the great female dams in there as well, including the Hyogo cow that everybody wants to talk about. The Grand Dam of 068, West Homa 07, 146, the pedigree. Who else is it? Kimifuku
Kimi
as
Fuku,
well.
yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, when a vet in Japan writes about it and says, "I wish you were a girl," because then we would have a statue of you out front rather than all the bulls. That was a
That's right. Girl power. Speaking of girls, Barry, I saw a picture of a female that you have, a black, a 100% black female that had an incredible bag on her. What bloodline was that? I meant to ask you some time ago, but I was so impressed by that picture I saw. I'd like to know what that bloodline was.
Oh, that's she's out of actually the bloodline I got from Francis Payne. The Bar R Miss J 51 bloodline is what she's from, and uh, her her sire and then her dam sire are both sons of Inazur Doi, which was a purpose line breed that I did, not thinking that I was going to get more milk in the pedigree or in the animal, but we did. The first cross from the cow that I got from Francis, we call her Abigail's Mochico, named her after my buddy's daughter, Abigail. So it's Abigail's Mochico. She wanted to name her that, so we did. And we bred her to an Itazura Doi son from Muddy Flats, the 151 bull over the CF 502 cow. Okay. And then we bred that dam to 151. It's from the Vermont Wagyu herd, VT 150. I call him VT 151. It's 151 over the Yasufuku Jr. Son. So, and it surprised me that those two lines, we got more milk out of both dams. So, and she just had her first calf. We've weaned that calf. He's doing wonderful right now. He's getting ready to go to the feedlot himself. So we're looking forward to see what he's going to get. In that line there, it's a good milking line, but it's gotten better milk when we've added those two sires into the pedigree. And it's a long-lived line, too. They live, 15, 16, 17 years, all of them do, which is, something that's interesting. That's not the line that won the Triple Crown this year, but it's a real good longevity line. And frame, if anybody wants framing your cows.
Yes. Well, I learned from Kenny Landgraf this year that the milkability in the EBVs is not actually about the milk. So when I see pictures of cattle like what you had on the female side that have such a nice bag, and for those of you listening that don't know this, the black Wagyu are not big milk producers, and that's because the Japanese first started out. They never used the mama cows to raise the calves; they did all embryo, and so they kind of maternally lost that nice bag effect for being a mama. So when I see something with a bag like what I saw on your cow, I got very excited about that bloodline. So also wanted to know, so remind me again, who was the mother on this? It was your Malachite mother for this winning stake. Is that correct?
Yeah, Malachite was the dam, and I apologize that we kind of got off track there talking about another line. Malachite, we bred her just to go back real quick. We've gotten 4 carcasses off of Malachite so far, and all 4 of them have graded 39% IMF or higher from 26 months to 30 months. The one that won the Triple Crown here, it was Malachite to the TNO Hiroshige Tieyasu 7F bull. He is an impressive bull, probably goes 2,300 pounds. Gentle as can be, too. And after we had Malachite at the embryologist, he AI'd her to 7F for me. And that's how we actually got the calf, I guess, and scared him and fed him out. It's everything we've learned about Malachite with all the breedings we've done with her. She's done extremely well with growth bulls. Her carcass, her carcass merit comes through, and they bring the size, they bring the growth. Because she's probably, in that 1,000 to 1,100 pound range. So she's not a big cow. She's not a tiny cow, but she's not a big cow. She raises good calves. Her milk bag isn't huge, but she's never had a problem raising a calf out. And as we've seen, her carcass has just been outstanding. Her best carcass was actually sired by Nobu, LMR Nobu bull, and that carcass graded at 62%. So, we've been very fortunate with her, and we knew that we had a good chance to compete. We didn't know we were going, we didn't know we were going to win, obviously, because you don't know what factors are going to come in that you don't know about. Particularly like the fatty acid profiles in that.
Yeah.
We knew we would have one that we knew that the IMF was good, of course, but where you go, the taste, the sensory taste panel, everybody has a different flavor profile that they like. Everybody's taste is different. So whoever's sitting there at that time, tasting it, you're up to the mercy of them as well.
Well, we chose a panel this year that knew beef pretty well, so I think it was spot on the taste panel. And the new technology that Auburn has when they ran this professional taste panel, I've never even experienced anything like it. Everything is automatic. It's all AI. There's a leaderboard. You don't have to wait for people to finish. The leaderboard comes up and shows you when they finish their sample, and you can put the next sample in it. I'm just amazed every year at how much the AI improves in beef quality testing. And then, we had USDA there, which was fabulous because they could grade their grades, and then we could show our grades from the camera and do a correlation on that. And I think that's going to give people a lot of information too, because you don't always get a gold USDA grader grading your steak. I mean, for me, that was a really great thing we did this year.
Is this the first year you had the USDA, Desi? I don't remember it before.
No, we've had USDA involved, but this was the first year that they actually sent people in to look at the steaks and grade each steak. The USDA has been involved and excited to see the the amount of IMF. It goes way above prime, and I think that's what they want to see, is what producers are producing out there. And I'd like to also give a shout out to, this year we had Angus breeders. I gave them a separate category, and I was very excited and surprised at the amount of intermuscular fat they came up with and how high prime their steaks were. And I thought, wow, for the F1 breeder, having an Angus of this quality to breed with Wagyu was really going to make an exceptional carcass as well. In addition to our full blood category. And this year, Barry, we had enough entries that we were able to do full blood F1 and F2, which I was very excited about that. Mm-hmm.
Just curious, how many full blood carcasses did you get, or steak?
We had over 30 something. I don't know the exact number. Maybe 38 full bloods. We had plenty of F1s and F2s, and we had not a lot of Angus, but we did have enough to get the top Angus. So we were happy with that.
Well, that's interesting. I guess that's one thing that I guess at least from the American breeder of Wagyu side, is that the Angus Association, they're so much further ahead than we are on getting better. You know what I mean? Because they have so many more carcasses, so many more large breeders that they're pumping the information through, and they can get it back quicker too. Let's be honest, they can get back their carcasses faster. I think we're going in the right direction. It's just a little bit slower than maybe most of us would want, but
Well, what
I'm
I've
happy,
seen,
and that's why I joined that's why I entered the Triple Crown, is because it's a honestly because it's a way for us to try to improve what we're doing. Back when we first one of the reasons we first did it, and I should have mentioned this earlier, is there were no MIJ cameras back in 2017, 18, whenever you started this. So just that was a reason we did it, was honestly to get an IMF evaluation of our steaks. And of course the other information with it, but we didn't know what we had. We didn't know how good our steaks were, or at least our carcasses were at the time. So that was another reason why we did it, was simply to understand how much IMF our the animals that we had were had.
right? And when you look at the MIJ cameras, when they first started out, they were extremely expensive, like $60,000,
Right.
plus. And they were large, and they were, mostly for packing houses. But when they came out with the handheld device on the phone, I think that opened the door for everybody to be able to tell how their sires and dams were stacking up. And so, when you can get a device under 5,000 with your phone, or even if you go to having the beacon where you're on the rail doing, 100 head or whatever, and you can get that kind of information. And then we have people, I just met some guys that do analytics that put together for us for the Triple Crown. They analyzed everything, and you can take this carcass data, apply it to your farm and all the animals that you have, your sires and your dams, and then you get a printout and you can look at who's producing what and what crosses are yielding the best carcasses. And I just think it's a way to make it easy to really get the kind of carcass that you want. And what I've seen from grading all over the U.S. is that, full bloods are always going to grade higher, not higher all the time, but the majority of full bloods grade very high. And then your F1s, come below that, and you're going to get averages. I think our averages on our F1s were in the 28%, 4 to 28%. That's
Okay.
that's incredible considering what it was 6 years ago when we first started. I mean, the breeders are doing such a better job of producing their cattle, and we're seeing the scores just continually go up for everything, for full bloods, for F1s, for F2s, and Angus. I've seen Angus improve as well. So I think USA beef is getting incredible and is continuing to make itself the best quality in the world. Seriously, USA beef is really moving up. I Now our Wagyu are not going to be like Japan, but right now, but I see that happening, in time.
If and this is, we like I said, we've been to Japan. I've been to the fattening farms and all that. There's not that many farmers here that are going to get that sort of level of marbling throughout the entire carcass, and that's the difference between Japan and here. And I don't want to say this is not a bragging thing, but most of the breeders can get what the Japanese do in a ribeye and or like a strip steak. Um, but it's when you get it into the rounds, the marbling, that's when you're doing something really special. In all honesty, um, Wagyu Seikai. He's amazing. The carcasses they can produce. Pete Eshelman, I think I said his name properly. He raises them out Japanese style. I think Lauren Ruth is doing that now too. I could be wrong there. Pardon me if I was wrong. But breeders like that, they might be able to match um, what you're seeing
Fra-
in Japan simply
Francis
because
knows what he's doing too, Barry.
he does. I don't like to give Francis too much credit. Just teasing. He's awesome. He's awesome, and he knows it.
He is, and he knows it.
But in all honesty, to get that, the animal can't move as much, and a small breeder like myself, I have a friend who feeds it out, and he feeds when my steers go in. I always send them in two at a time, simply so they have a buddy when they go into the
Right.
new environment. And uh, that feedlot has sale barn heifers because he buys heifers at the sale barn because he he's an owner in a sale barn, so he does. That's one of the things that he does. He runs Wagyu bulls on his herd too, so he'll have F1s in there and an F2 and a couple F2s, and then he has a few of my full bloods in his feedlot, and it's an open feedlot. One of them's kind of hilly, the other one's not, but it's not Japan. It's not how
It's
they
not
feed their in
Japan.
Japan.
And
And sorry.
I was just going to say, every podcast I try to emphasize that the Japanese, the cattle are the one of the main concepts in raising those cattle is not to have them much stress. And they are very calm and they pay a lot of attention to that animal. And people here raise them American style out in big pastures, and they're just not raised that way in Japan. And I think that's one of the reasons that they have such great carcasses. I mean, I've graded in their carcasses in Obahiru, and it was just one carcass after the other of amazing beef. Now, they did have some that, weren't that great, but they were still, I would have taken them. I've taken the
Oh,
not so
absolutely.
great ones.
Hmm.
But the
Absolutely.
quality, and I think Americans need to realize too, when you get an A5, it is not just on the intermuscular fat. There's a lot of different things they grade that carcass on. They dedicate a lot to the fineness of the fat, the way the fat lays in the carcass, the amount of meat in the ribeye area. I mean, there's a lot of things that make it an A5, not just the IMF.
The meat color, the fat color,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and if any of those characteristics are so, out of the five characteristics, whatever the lowest number is on any of the characteristics is what that animal gets. So you can have fives in all the categories but one, and it's a three. Guess what? It's a three. It's an A3.
It's a three.
Um,
That's right.
yep.
Yeah. So, I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions is how the Japanese arrive at an A5 carcass compared to the way we grade. But I mean, it's learning, and I'm going to try to have a podcast. Maybe get Dr. Kuchita to help me on that
What's in Japan when you this is a I don't want to talk. I don't know if we want to talk about Japan too much, but when you go to Japan, they don't have Wagyu in the freezer there. You don't see they don't. First of all, they don't have a lot of freezer. Their refrigerators are fairly small, and they have a small freezer section. They cut everything to order almost um, at the butcher shop, and if you go to the grocery store, it's already cut into small pieces or sliced very thinly, depending on the cut. And they don't make burger out of their Wagyu there. They get their burger from us in America, believe it or not. So yes, it's just so much fat, and that's one of the things that I guess American breeders are having a challenge with is what to do with their burger. Simply because when you do burger with Wagyu, it's very fatty. You have to take fat out rather than put it in. And so in Japan, they don't even do it. They don't even make burger. At least the majority of them don't make burger with full blood Wagyu.
Well, but I do love that burger. I love a full blood burger. I think
Well,
it's so
don't get me
tasty.
wrong. It's great. I just had one yesterday. Um, it's just getting your butcher, which is one of the challenges we have here in the U.S. And you probably know this. I know everybody else does. Of getting the butcher to really do what you need. Most of our butchers here in the U.S. are used to cutting up animals quick, making a lot of roasts, throwing everything into the grind, then and pushing it out. Whereas if you do Wagyu, full blood Wagyu, you need a lot more delicate cutting done, more intricate, to get the real value out of our beef.
Right. And one thing I know is that when making burger, when they do add the fat to the meat to make the burger, that fat needs to be chilled. You can't just put the fat in there without having it well chilled, or you're going to get a mush kind of a burger. So your processor needs to know that, that the fat has to be very chilled when he goes to make your patties or make your burger.
Right. They need to chill everything at that
Mm-hmm.
stage. They're cutting it, and everything that goes to the grind needs to be re-chilled that night. That's another thing that we've learned with the thin slicing, the way you call shaved or shabu shabu style.
Mm-hmm.
They have to put it in the freezer, not freeze it totally, but get it a little bit colder so they can slice it thin enough so it cuts through, and so you can pack it properly. Uh,
Right. Yeah. There's a lot to it to get it just right. Well, Barry, I've really enjoyed having you on the podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your great genetics and your winning carcasses?
Well, when you find an animal, I guess one of the big things, Malachit's going to be 10 this year. She's almost 10 now, and we've had enough. We've seen enough, offspring from her, and you really realize what works with an animal, and you don't get it the first time. That first calf that we've learned from pretty much any animal that we've had is always smaller. It's not going to. It's not going to be what you think it's going to be, particularly if it's raised by the dam. Um, it takes time to figure it out. You got to see more than a few carcasses. Um, don't pay attention to all the EBVs. Yeah, it's something that it's a tool, and you need to look at it. Genomics has a long way to go. This animal that was that won the competition has a zero point 0.8 MS score. Okay, and it 3 times was graded at 52% IMF or something like that, 52 or 53% IMF, and it had a zero point 0.8 MS score genomically from replant in Australia. So you got to take everything as a grain of salt, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Well, the
See
truth
what the
is in the
breeders are doing.
carcass.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm not against genomics at all. And I hope it'll take us to a place where we can make quicker decisions. And a lot of the bases in Australia aren't the same as what we have here or are using. And here in the U.S., we're such more fragmented um, of a group than what is in Australia. Remember, Australia only has 20 million people, so the farms there are huge. They're an export market, and they've got some amazing breeders over there that are doing wonderful things. They're much further ahead than we are, at least technology wise, in where they're going. But I believe that we've got good stuff here too. I believe it can compete with anything that's out on the market now. I've got Australian genetics in my herd, okay, and I look forward to seeing what they can produce for us as well. One thing I want to say, Desi, is from the American side, and and I want to make sure people understand. I'm not throwing a stone anywhere, but I turned in 6 carcasses to the American Wagyu Association from animals 4 of them were from Malachit, okay, and then 2 were from her daughters. And this is data that we had. Gave them all the information. Um, uh, 2 of them were born on the same day. 2 of the cows. They were all raised together, born on the property. 2 were even born on the same day, and they don't get any carcass EBVs because they weren't harvested on the same day. And even though they were raised together, we had 2 that were raised together completely because they were the ones from 2020, and then the ones that we harvested 4 last year. And like I said, 2 of the animals, both were Malachit calves, were born on the same day, but they were harvested on different days, so they're not in the same contemporary group for a carcass. So their carcass data is not being used in the American Wagyu Association's I don't know what we call it here, but EBVs. So it's just a little heads up for American breeders. If you want your carcasses to count, at least from an EBV standpoint, you got to probably send at least 2 animals in at the same time. I was really disappointed when I heard that. They said they don't have the math to do it, which is surprising. We put a human on the moon in 1970. And they can't come up with that correlation for carcass EBV from animals that were born and raised together, went to the feedlot on the same day, harvested on different days, but we can't come up with an EBV for that, or the math to create the EBV for it. So,
Well,
just
Barry,
I'm sorry.
no,
I'm sorry, but
okay, that's
it's really
your,
frustrating. It's really frustrating when you're
yeah.
trying to do the right thing and it's not really correlating there.
I'm just kind of a little bit in shock right now. Just let me get over it for a minute. But I will tell you that I am going to give you the number of the guys that help me with the analytics that can take your information for you and make your, points and get with you and do your program in a way that you can look at your own EBVs. And I guess that's what we're going to have to do because, for small breeders, that kind of cuts everybody out.
We literally operate on 9 acres and we lease another 5. Okay, that's how big our herd is. That's how big of an operation we have. Very small, and we want what we're doing to count. And it just really, kind of screw it into your back a little bit. And that's not an aim at anybody at the association. I want to make sure everybody stands that. It's just the circumstances of the matter.
Circumstances of the matter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know what I was going to talk to you, Desi, about was our visit to Takeda. We got to see. We went. Akiko and I were able to see Takeda at the end of October 22, just a few months before he passed away, and he's got a wonderful operation there. His grandson's doing really good things. Now, what was interesting about it is he was actually using genomic EBVs too. He was doing a test with a couple of nice cows that he had that had big short rib EBVs, and he was doing embryo work with them to put out to see if they actually had bigger short ribs for their carcasses or for their work for his. They have a restaurant there, and they feed out 50 to 60 animals a year for the restaurant, and then another 28 that they sell at the carcass auctions. So it was a very, very interesting visit. He couldn't have been more nicer to us. He was obviously, his health was getting a little rough, but boy, did he want to talk about Wagyu. He couldn't stop him, and that was wonderful. And the guy had an amazing life. Born and raised on an island north of Hokkaido, and then when the Russians took it over for World War II, family moved to Hokkaido, and he wanted to be a farmer, and they didn't have cows in Hokkaido at the time, so they went and bought them from the lower islands in Japan and brought them back. And the fact that he shipped them over here, if he hadn't shipped them over, us Americans would have very few animals to deal with. So, God bless him.
And I'm so glad you got to spend time with him before he passed away. I mean, he was an amazing man, just an amazing man. And a lot of the great genetics came from, Takeda.
Well, and what's nice is he was very forward thinking for us. And it was also for him too, because he was gonna try to build a farm here, and he did in Australia. But he was forward thinking in the bulls. Right? He gave us lots of different genetic options with what he chose. Now, not every one of those bulls turned out to be great bulls, and he'll tell you. And he told us that in our visit. But he picked animals that he thought were going to give us genetic diversity, but also be just provide wonderful carcasses and just overall good balanced animals too.
Yes, and actually, Takeda Genetics has always done really well in the carcass competition. The Kimi Tofuku line, and there's several more that have always scored really high in the competition.
Right, right.
So,
Well, like I said, the bottom side of the Malaysia pedigree was Takeda.
yeah.
Not 100% Takeda, but most of it, a lot of it was Takeda. So
Well, that's
151,
great.
148. Yeah.
Well, Barry, I'm so happy that you won this year, and we're going to have some advertising out there about you and show pictures of your steak and send that in. And I hope everybody will tune in and look at the winners. And oh, you've got an auction. Do you have a sale coming up? Do you have a sale
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
up?
we're participating in a sale with our friends from Twin Oaks. It's called the Virginia Wagyu Classic. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
the Virginia Wagyu Classic. It's on May 5th. We have about, I forget, over 50 live lots. Just some real good quality animals for sale. And actually, the sire TNO 7F, Hiroshige 7F, and Malashit will both be at the sale. They're not being sold. I think they're selling some semen from 7F, but they're going to be at the sale so people can actually look and see the animals that produce that carcass.
Uh-huh. Are you going to have
And
any embryos out of Malachite?
Yeah, there's one. There's going to be one lot of Malashit, and she's with the only Inishiganami junior son we've mated her with. So that's going to be kind of exciting. We haven't used anything from junior before with her, so this will be fun. And I think I chose right uh, on the pairing there. Uh, we've got two daughters of hers in the sale, and a granddaughter in the
Mm-hmm.
granddaughter. So um, you know, and there's lots of other good quality animals that um, whether you're a first time breeder going into the game, or you just want a bull for your herd, all the way to the experienced breeder that wants to add either another line or improve on what they have. I think we've got between what Twin Oaks have and what I have. I think there's something for everyone in the sale. So,
Yeah,
but thank you for bringing it up.
I do agree. Okay, well, thank y'all for listening. And once again, I want to thank Barry Elliott for his winning stakes in the Triple Crown 2023. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks, Daisy.